Good evening and welcome to the Monday, May 14, 2018 Board of Education meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I understand I was going to get the student reps out quickly because I know this is a very, very busy time of year. Dorcas Saka is running a couple of minutes late, so I think we'll just hold off on getting you. As soon as she is here, we'll move to your place on the agenda. And with the board's permission, Mr. Fessel, Ted Fessel, is here, the liaison from the local veterans groups to present an update, if you will, as he does every year, and we appreciate the work that he has done. A longtime crossing guard at Calvin Leet School, and also a very active member of the Guilford Public Schools community. So, Mr. Fessel, please, if you.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank God for getting me here. I've had a few medical problems, and I've overcome them, and my wife too. And one thing, we try to stay loyal to what we do. And one thing, I come here all the time, and I work for the kids in town, especially. The fire department, I was in the Washington Engine for 10 years. I was a crossing guard for 18. I really got to know everybody in Guilford. And you do a wonderful job here. I watch it all the time on television. And, of course, it's very interesting, the Board of Selectmen and the Board of the Treasurers. And it's all about this preamble, the veterans. For God and country, we associate ourselves together for the following purposes: to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, to maintain law and order, to foster and perpetuate a 100% Americanism, to preserve the memories and incidents of our associations in the great wars, to inculcate a sense of individual obligation to the community, state, and nation, to combat the autocracy of both the masters and the classes, to make right the master of right, to promote peace and goodwill on earth, to safeguard and transform to posterity the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy, to consecrate and sanctify our comradeship by our devotion to mutual helpfulness. This one I think should be in every school in the country, the one you sent the bill about a lifetime of achievement cannot possibly be captured in a few words. A career dedicated to helping young people who called on you, depended on you, cannot be summed up in a paragraph or two. Each of our retirees fought to make certain that each child whose path crossed theirs was treated with enthusiasm, with compassion and respect. Each of them worked tirelessly to give young people the understanding that with knowledge and wisdom and imagination, the world has no limits. They understood and willingly accepted the immense responsibility that our town and the parents gave them. For this, we should be grateful. And while their achievements cannot be captured in words, our gratitude can be. On behalf of the Board of Education and indeed our entire town, thank you, William M. Bloss, Chairman, Guilford Board of Education. I feel like every school in this country should have something like this up on their bulletin board. Right now, of course, the world's in all kinds of problems, and I'm sure we're going to, with the help of everybody pitching in, our military is out there on the perimeter, and they're a great military. Our son was in there for 34 years in the Navy, 8 battleships, and when he got through with the Navy, they had him. The president had him try to get jobs, not only for the veterans, and women and men, but for everybody. And he got 3 million jobs out there now. And I thought that was a great job, a great achievement. And last year, at Veterans Day, the schools honored me for coming to the green, and we appreciated that. And I, especially me, my kids out there. And I loved them. They were fantastic. The parents were great. And this town may have a few kids that cross up once in a while, but they have plenty of people to outnumber them. And The idea, what the police are doing, I think, is excellent. And you people have done, setting up all these safeguards, locking the doors. You got to call to get in and stuff like that. It's excellent. You don't want to make it a fortress either. I don't want no teacher handling a gun. We don't want no teachers to handle a gun. They have enough to do with their studies, and what they can do, if they see a kid struggling with some problem at home or they're sick or something, check it out a little deeply. You never know. And but we think that the backing of the 800 veterans in town, I want them and the Boy Scouts to check out all the elderly people in town and see how they're doing. The ones that are locked in, they have no transportation. All they got is a telephone. And I want everybody in town to be alert, just in case our enemies are out there trying to do something. How long this will take, I hope it's very young. It doesn't happen. But we're, I'm sure, on their list to make trouble. If they can hurt us, they hurt the system, and we don't want that to happen. And last year, the Beacon, I got the Beacon Award. I was tickled to death to get that. I really appreciated that. And the VA thought they check up on all World War II guys. They keep an eye on us to see what we're doing. And the doctor said, hey, you did pretty good by the kids. So I felt good about that. And she helped me get that award. And this year, they even asked me to put in 4 or 5 people I know deserve it. And these are the 4 or 5 people. One is Twyla Skelly. She was a teacher in Clinton for many years. I was a custodian up there for a while. And she was an excellent teacher. She was a member of my Congregational church. And she helped this kid and family who had a rare form of cancer. This is a number of years back. And she moved in with the family while they went all over the world to find this doctor who could cure her son. And everybody more or less gave up. Only one person that didn't give up was the kid. And Paul Newman and I, we took care of all that had to be done. And he's still alive. He had a little relapse last year. This is about 20 years ago, maybe a little less than that. I put her in there because it was quite a story about the fight against cancer in those days, especially this disease. I also worked with the doctors. Myself, they would ask me to help out. There's some of their experiments to fight heart disease and strokes. And it was just taking a needle, and that was it. No big deal. But to them, it was a big deal. Because I guess they learned from people who they work with experimenting. And they give me a pacemaker, my wife a pacemaker. And the nurse whispered in my ear, and she said, well, fella, you're going to last another 10 years. I thought that was pretty good. And the ones I picked for next year, and I hope I'm here next year, is a Rick Maynard. I think he does an excellent job at the Park and Recreation. Charlie Hershaft at the Fire Department. That was one of the things that I got a kick out of being a fireman. Ruth Nettleton, she does a lot for the Protestant church, the Congregational church, and many people in town. She was a teacher. And Chip Darwin, a good friend of mine, I think he did a great job in recreation. Your president of recreation man, Mr. Jarvis, I believe his name is. He's fantastic. The teams are doing very well, all sports, and your daughter's doing great in track.
I can't take any credit for that.
But I keep up with everything in the paper still. They told me keep going, because if you stop, you're going to be in trouble. So that's the way I've been doing it. I made it tonight, and I'm happy to make it. And that's about it. That's about it. Oh, yes, one more thing. I want to forget. We made our gift to the scholarship every year of $1,000. And this year, the hurricane in Florida wiped out the oranges, and they couldn't bring that up here. And in California, the fires wiped out the grapefruit, so they couldn't bring that up here. So my new commander, Ron DiMartino, he told me that not to push anybody too hard, but we got a few bucks left to start up that day. If anybody in town could help us out just for this year with a little donation, because we want to give the kids $1,000 a scholarship, like we've been doing for a number of years. And these kids you got in town here, they're wonderful to work with. And the teachers, I think the parents are doing a great job. That's about all I got to say, and I wish everybody a happy time.
Well,
I
Mr.
hope we have peace and harmony, and everybody gets along in the world.
That would be good.
Thank you very much.
Well, and I want to. You know, on behalf of the board and really on behalf of the entire Guilford community, I want to thank you for everything that not only you've done, both to preserve our liberty and to protect the peace of the United States, but also what you've done for the community since coming back. And you are an icon in this.
We
town.
love the challenge. We love the challenge. And in the Army, anybody will tell you, when you're in the Army, if you can survive that, you can survive anything. The captain told me, he says, Teddy, God watches you every minute. Remember that. But he said, if you can survive this, no matter what you do in civilian life will ever hurt you. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we? We'll get to you. Why don't we do the minutes? Might as well do that. April 9, 2018 regular minutes. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any corrections, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then item 3.2 is the April 23rd, 2018 workshop meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any changes? I thought I did have a change, actually. I thought, where it says discussion ensued regarding a possible 15-minute change in start times for next year, that would only be at the high school. It would be a 10-minute change at other schools. But that was the proposal of the task force in any event. We're going to talk about that at our special meeting.
So I'll put at GHS.
Yes, that'd be fine. All right, would that change? Any other changes on those? All in favor of the motion?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Abstain.
Okay, Ms. Cohen abstains. Item 4 on the agenda is public forum for topics on the board agenda. Is there anything on that? Okay. I do want to say, by the way, this is going to be the first meeting in quite a while that Suzanne Carlson is not here. Suzanne has been hasn't had an equal participation rate to most of the board members, frankly, at Board of Education meetings over the last 3 or 4 years. So she just is going to watch on TV now. GCTV is going to be her source of information about this. So I want to acknowledge Suzanne Carlson's participation and support and her unwavering interest in making sure that our school system continues to improve. So. Item 5, expenditures.
The April financial reports. Expenditures for the month of April were $4,449,190.03. The expenditures and encumbrances through the end of April were 75.8%, and compared to last year where we were just about 76%. There wasn't anything that was particularly interesting this month. So we did talk about it a lot in our operations meeting prior to this. So unless anyone else has any questions, it's a motion to approve the financials for April.
Second. Any other questions? We did talk about this quite a bit in the operations committee meeting. Any other questions or comments? It does look like, I should mention that it does look like we are within budget again this year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
Barely.
Yeah, well, it's good budgeting. The barely is better than the alternative. Right. Or some of the alternatives, anyway. So, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 7, we'll have to come back to that. Item 8, do you want to just update us on IFL?
Sure, I'm happy to. I actually have a fairly short report this evening. I did want to bring to the board's attention, however, that last week, Mrs. Ryan and Mr. Fregola joined Dr. Keene and myself at the annual IFL Learning Conference. We traveled to Pittsburgh. We were able to spend several days working with some of the preeminent educational minds in the country. And what I really like about the IFL conference is that it is essentially a 3-day conversation. You're not traveling from hour-long sessions that are disconnected. We were able to spend time working on assessment with a focus on formative assessment used for instruction in the classroom rather than an over-reliance on large end-of-unit, end-of-year summative assessments. We spent time talking about motivation and mindset and how we could better support and better encourage learning among the students. And all through the week wove that into a discussion of continuous improvement and coherence, being able to bring the diverse components together. We worked with Lori Shepard, who is one of the preeminent assessment gurus in the nation. We worked with Chris Hulleman, who is doing some cutting-edge work on mindset and student motivation. And we worked with Alan Schoenfeld, who had a really thoughtful format, an overall approach for really ensuring that students are building robust understanding and looking at that through a classroom lens. The title of the conference was Coherence, Continuous Improvement, and Agency, Building Better Systems for Diverse Learners, and you have some information in your packet about those conversations. As we've done every year, we came away first with affirmation, feeling that we continue to be on the right track, but we also came away with our focus sharpened and have again talked with the IFL fellows about working more closely with them moving forward. Following past conferences, we've come back and brought Sugata Mitra into district. Sugata Mitra is a TED Prize winner who was here some years ago and worked with our staff on technology in the classrooms. We in the past have brought Liz City. She is the director of the Graduate School of Education at Harvard. She worked with us just a couple of years ago. We've brought IFL fellows, and we came away from this one talking with Lori Shepard about the possibility of her or somebody from her group joining us and working with us this summer on some assessment work. It was reinvigorating, it was rejuvenating, it was just a really good conference, and we're excited about moving the work forward.
And I'd like to add that Dr. Freeman was recognized at the conference, unbeknownst to him or to me or to any of us, for the longest-standing partnership with the Institute for Learning. And earlier, they had interviewed him on video.
They lied to me.
And he came to me and he says, they're going to interview you too. They're collecting all these interviews, like testimonies.
Testimonials for their website.
And then suddenly, there's Dr. Freeman on a huge screen in front of everybody at the conference talking about the strength of the collaborative partnership, our reliance on them for cutting-edge research, and that whole continuous improvement model and professional learning, that it's not just about the conference or when fellows are in our district, but it's day to day when we can give them a call and they respond immediately, or we send them an email and they can respond to us. So
It was nice.
it really was.
More importantly than me being on that giant screen, there was a session that was focused on coaching in the classroom. And during the session where we were talking about coaches' work with teachers in the classroom and, in fact, using video to enhance that work, the entire session was built around a video clip of our coach and a classroom teacher from Lakes Elementary School. And so the educators from around the country, when they were looking at coaching practice, were watching Guilford teachers and educators in the coaching moment. And it was really something special to be in the session and to know that we were watching our work in Guilford on the screen, and not just on this big screen. They were huge. They were 80 feet tall, but also transcripts of what had happened in our classroom and what those two educators were discussing, and we were using that to move practice across the country. So that was pretty exciting. And I know we're waiting for Dorcas to get here, and I'm sorry, but that completes my report for the evening.
No, don't apologize for a short report. Yeah, no. So let's just go on to the board agenda, and I promise we'll get you out of here as soon as we can. 9.1 is act on two personnel items, both retirements, resignations for the purpose of retirement. One is Jane Kingsley, who's a language arts teacher at the high school, after 26 years of work here. And the other is Christine Manone at Lakes Elementary School, grade 1 teacher, after 27 years of teaching in Guilford. So is there a motion to ratify those resignations for the purpose of retirement?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I'm sure the superintendent will indicate our gratitude and our
Good
thanks.
service.
to,
Happy to.
yeah.
I have to say, if I may, Mr. Voss, that
Absolutely.
Chris Manone, as a parent of 2 children who went through Lakes, I've known her for a while, and I really want to just echo our thanks for her service. One of my sons also had Mrs. Kingsley, who has also given, as you noted, many, many years of service to Guilford. So both wonderful individuals, and we really do extend our appreciation for all that they've given our district.
Very much so.
So item 9.2 is to act on a recommendation by the food service director that we again participate in the state of Connecticut nutritional standards, and specifically the 2018-19 dietary guidelines and the Connecticut nutrition standards for foods in schools for the year 2018-19. What this means is it limits some of what we can serve to healthier foods, but we get then 10 cents a meal back from the state and for that participation. So the request by the food service director is that we agree to participate in the Connecticut nutrition standards for foods in schools for 2018-19 with the exemptions permitted by the standards, and that needs to be in the motion. So is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
9.3 is to act on a submission of a grant to the federal government. Well, is it the federal government or the state government? This is the federal government. This is the IDEA Section 611 grants. A little more than some years. But there is a request that we seek a grant from the federal government for IDEA Section 611 funds in the amount of $692,656, and also Section 619 funds, which are children ages 3 to 5, in a total amount of $19,735. So the application would be the total of $712,391. Is there do you want to explain anything about that, Dr. Keene? Is there anything we need to know?
Well, IDEA basically provides additional supports for students with special needs, and that includes some of our staffing comes out of this grant, as well as some professional development, some supplies, some textbooks, and some technology, assistive technology specifically. And this is an entitlement grant, but it's usually based on, the allocations are based on the number of students as well as the demographics. So it is a grant that we depend on every year to help our students with special needs.
All right, is there a motion then that we submit the IDEA application in the total amount of $712,391?
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Let's hold off on 9.4 for just a second. I think
I
that's
agree.
probably the longest.
Yep.
9.5 is to act on scheduling a public forum regarding school start times. Now, this is something we obviously have said that we were going to open up to public dialogue before there's any action by the board. I think that we have a consensus among the board that a night that we need to do this sooner rather than later if there's any thought about trying to implement anything for the 2018-19 school year. So I think that the suggestion has been that at least most of us can attend the meeting on the evening of May 23rd, which is next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday, at 7 p.m., location to be determined, but probably Adams, I would guess.
It's likely going to be here or in the choral room at Adams, and with this time of year, we'll just have to confirm, and if not there, we'll find an alternate location if neither one of those are available.
And
It's
so
7 o'clock. right?
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, and that's just going to be for public input. That's not, we're not going to make any votes that night. We're not going to take any votes that night. We're not going to we're just going to listen. That's the whole point of it. There is, I believe, a task force meeting tomorrow night? Tomorrow night here?
Yes.
Or here. That is going to, I think one of the items on the agenda is to meet with the transportation, the new transportation company to see, one of the things we've been really interested in is whether there are some alternatives in the transportation side of the equation, because I think as we are aware, that middle bus run is a major impediment to everything, to really the efficient opening of all three levels of the schools, but that middle bus run in particular is a problem. So we're going to try to get some input from the transportation company, the new transportation company, which isn't even on the job yet. Right. The contract doesn't start until July 1st, but they have agreed to at least give us some thoughts, I guess is the way to put it.
And Mr. Bloss, I'd note for that meeting on the 23rd, at the board's last meeting, the Start Time Task Force delivered their interim report, and that report is available on the school website. There is a quick link on the left for the Start Time Task Force. And so the comments that I think the board would want to hear from the community would be in response to that interim report. So while I'm sure that we will highlight that at the beginning of the meeting, people who want to read that report should access it on our website and give them an opportunity to think about what will be discussed that evening on the 23rd.
Right, that's fine. And I guess I should have mentioned under communications, I think all of us have received some emails in the last week
Yes.
from all sorts with all sorts of different views, frankly, on the issue. So we'll continue to work on it.
And we'll begin publicizing that meeting on the 23rd immediately.
Okay. All right. So 9.6 is to receive policy committee recommendations.
Yes. So the policy committee met last month, and members of the Guilford High School administration were present at the meeting. And one of the things we discussed and chose to move for recommendation to the larger board was on policy 6310, graduation requirements. You'll see before you both the policy and the regulation that reflect a couple of proposed changes. What drove their attendance at the policy meeting and drives some of these changes is a proposed decision to remove the student decile ranking at the high school from the transcript, basically, to not report out the student decile ranking unless a college requires it. Most colleges at this point, I hope I'm not misquoting this, I believe our Vice Principal Julia Chaff mentioned 9% at this point. Very, very small number of colleges are even looking at class rank at this point. And Mrs. Sullivan will add to this or correct me if I'm wrong, but the intent is driven by a couple of things on top of the fact that so few colleges are looking at it, that we have a high-achieving student body for whom particular students could be hundredths of a point away from each other in a rank. So the feeling is that the class rank at this point is really not well representing an individual student's performance. And depending on how they fall in the decile ranking may actually poorly reflect on their student achievement here, which is the last thing we certainly want to do. It is also noted that it can cause an added stressor for kids, particularly in a high-achieving district, to be kind of constantly juggling around trying to figure out where your rank is, trying to increase it or whatever. So that the recommendation is then to remove it from the transcript. The administration still would know an individual's rank. So again, if a college particularly requested or required a rank, that could be provided. It does not change the fact that we will be able to identify a valedictorian, a salutatorian, I can never say that word, I'm sorry.
Number 2.
It's one of those words that I constantly struggle with. So what you see, so again, that's what drove the administration. They did earlier, I believe, go to a curriculum meeting. They also then came to our policy meeting. That being said, the first thing I want to propose that the Board of Ed receive tonight is the graduation requirements policy, number 6310. You'll note that the only change on the policy, which doesn't specify class rank specifically, is on the bottom of the first page to change the particular wording around assessments for graduation to simply identify any statewide mastery examination. So this is, with the number of changes that have been made in the last couple of years, this will allow us to cover what the present, at any given time, state assessment is. So that, and then in the regulation, the changes reflect on page 1 the removal of all of the graduation requirements that are now going to kind of sunset with the graduating class this year. 3 years ago, the policy committee with the administration worked to adopt, and then the Board of Ed worked to adopt enhanced graduation requirements for what is now the junior class. So the first page simply strikes out the old requirements. The bottom of page 2, or page B per our handout, again is generalizing the language around assessments so that it always represents the current assessments. And then on page C, you will notice the cross out to remove the language around decile rank being reported out, and to identify on the table of cumulative point average matrix that IB courses and AP courses receive the same point bump for students participating. So, again, we ask the Board of Ed to receive these tonight, and then we will, I assume, act on them next month.
Right. Do you have any comments?
Questions?
No, Mrs. Balistraci summarized it quite well. It really, I think it's a good idea. Visiting colleges, it's true, they're not looking at it. And I think one of the comments that we got at the meeting was that you can have a lot of deception in what the decile ranking is. You can have a student who does quite well in school, a B+, B student, having a kind of a low-looking decile ranking because of the caliber of the students here, and so that it is a little unfair when schools are looking at those numbers and trying to compare them to what we have here. So I think that was good.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so, I'm kind of stalling here a little bit for our other student rep, but I don't see her. I see Mr. Macenti. So I'm going to go ahead and suggest that we take your reports, both of you, and then when Ms. Saka arrives, we can. She's either on her own, alone, or you guys can hang around. So why don't we go ahead and get your reports?
Okay, so from A.W. Cox, on May 18th, students in all grades will be performing in the music festival It's Showtime, hosted in the gymnasium. And Friday the 25th is Mix It Up Spirit Day. At Calvin Lee third graders traveled to Solstice Senior Living at Guilford in late April as part of their social studies focus on community service. They sang a variety of songs led by Libby Cedar, the Leets music teacher, and gave out handmade cards after the concert. This was a great opportunity for the students to spread kindness and joy to others in the community. Also, Calvin Leets School is participating in the Jump Rope for Heart event to raise money for the American Heart Association, and their Jumpathon is scheduled for the end of this week. Lastly, students in kindergarten, first, and second grades will also be performing in their spring music concert tomorrow for family and friends.
From Baldwin Middle School, SBAC testing in math is coming to a close, and so far it has gone quite well. This year they designed the testing schedule to be shorter but more frequent, which led to a serious and more focused approach by many of the students. The sixth grade took a trip to the Boston Museum of Science, finally. After rescheduling it twice, it finally happened on Thursday, April 26th. And next year they've decided not to hold any field trips between January and April. In terms of transitioning, parents from incoming grade 4 students will have 2 information sessions available for them, one on May 21st and one on May 22nd. The one on May 21st is for Lakes and Jones students, and the one on May 22nd is for Calvin Leet and A.W. Cox students. Also, for grade 4 students, their student visit is coming up on June 6th. From Adams Middle School, the 7th grade took a science-based field trip to the Terminal Moraine at Hammonasset this week, and the 8th grade social studies classes took field trips to the Connecticut River Museum in Essex, and learned the history of economics of the Connecticut fishing and whaling industries. Also from Adams Middle School, the 7th and 8th grade bands held their spring concerts over the past 2 weeks, and the orchestra will hold their concert this week. From Guilford High School, the senior breakfast, senior showcase, senior outing, and senior prom are all coming up. The musical School of Rock was a ginormous hit and almost sold out every single night. And AP testing is being held this week and next week.
Junior prom was held on May 4th at Fantasia in North Haven. The evening was very exciting and successful, and the venue was amazing with great food. Spring sports are nearing their respective playoffs and have had a very successful regular season, and teams are looking to make deep runs into both the SEC and state tournaments. The National Honor Society induction is on May 21st in the Performing Arts Center, and the World Language Honor Societies and International Thespian Society induction will be held the same week. Finally, I'd like to thank both Dorcas, who unfortunately can't be here, and Brennan for their leadership and for welcoming me as a student representative. And I'm happy to announce that both Dorcas and Brendan have decided where they will be attending school this fall. Brendan will be going to Monmouth University in New Jersey, where he will be pursuing a degree in music industry, and Dorcas has decided to go to Claremont McKenna College in California, and she will be studying biology and psychology with a sequence in leadership.
Oh, congratulations. That's terrific. So I guess I've got to ask, what's music industry instead of music?
So it's a combination of music production and business management, financing, entrepreneurship. It's a good combination of some really interesting subjects, so I'm excited.
Terrific.
Congratulations.
Well,
I just wanted to make
yeah,
a quick comment
please.
about School of Rock. Of course, anyone who saw it knows what an amazing show it was, and as you mentioned, it was pretty much sold out every night. The talent of the cast and crew, as usual, was top-notch, but what I really wanted to highlight is that I was a chaperone backstage for opening night, and my task was to sit in a chair and make sure that it was quiet backstage, that no one was injured and required care, and that everyone was respectful and did what they needed to do. And I can report that I sat in the chair and never did anything. That the professionalism and the respectful nature of the performers and the crew really is a testament to what our students can do, and they required no adult assistance. So.
Terrific. Well, so I should note one other thing. Item 7.1 on the agenda is to recognize the Cabe Student Leadership Awards, and one of our recipients is here, and it would be you, Mr. Balistraci. So if you would please join me up here, and Mr. Messeni, would you like to join us as well?
She's just coming through North Guilford, so she should be here about 5 minutes.
If she's in North Guilford, she'll be here in about half an hour.
Good wearing.
Yeah.
So, Brendan, I want to thank you on behalf of the Board of Education, and we're honored that you were able to receive this Student Leadership Award from the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. It is a reflection of your leadership in the community here, and I'll leave it to Mr. Messeni to say a few words about you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to read the nomination form from Cabe because I can really speak from my heart about this young man. But this is a guy who flies under the radar at our high school. Doesn't get a lot of recognition, but comes to school every day and just does a wonderful, wonderful job in the classroom and outside the classroom. He's demonstrated leadership on the fencing team as well as just in the halls. Just a wonderful young man to be around. He's going to be very successful in high school. I know doing this, once a month has been difficult with his schedule, but he's been a trooper about all of it. And it's been great to have crossed paths with you, and thank you for all your contributions to our high school.
Thank you.
You're the best. Nice job.
Thank you.
So, okay, so you're free to stay, you're free to go. If you have AP testing, you may want to go. Just guessing, but, and then, do you have AP tests, or either one of you, or?
Not this week.
Not yet, okay, well, not this week, that's, okay, good. Well, go study. So I'm speculating, the only real long item on the agenda left is the presentation of the science curriculum. I'm guessing that's not why people are here. What is it that, if I can just inquire, what can we do for you?
Shoreline Tech is here to talk about a cell phone policy, a more formal one for K through 8.
Okay. The answer was that there's an issue. It's fine. Just go ahead. And if I could just suggest, though, in the future that if you want to, I can put something on the agenda, but I didn't hear from anybody. But yeah, that's fine. Come up now. That's fine. And just to let you know, we do have a policy committee that kind of fields this, and so I'm sure that Dr. Balistraci, who she's still the chair, is she not? Yeah.
She walks away.
No, that's fine.
She is the chair.
Okay, you actually get up and do things sometimes. But the policy committee is what is the entity that starts off with policy requests and amendments and changes and so forth. So I'd urge you to dialogue with her. And then my guess is that there would be some policy committee meeting sometime over the summer or something. And then that could be that's the way the process gets started, I guess, is what I'm getting to.
Okay, do you want us to present today?
Go ahead, of course.
Okay, we'll keep it brief, as
That's fine.
Jody said. Well, thanks for having us here, Chairman, Co-Chairman, and Board of Ed and administrators. My name's Lisa Barbario, and I'm a member of Shoreline Tech. We came about a year ago to help families in schools, children, and communities make informed decisions about their use of technology and devices, and to heighten awareness and initiate change that positively impacts our kids. So today we're recommending to the Board of Ed and a formal, specific policy that would apply to all Guilford K through 8 grades for 2018-2019 school year. And going forward, the policy would state that there be no handheld devices, cell phones, iPods, gaming systems during the school day. To allow for a better educational and social environment. Why? They are distracting from learning and engaging and thinking critically. They increase stress and anxiety during the academic day. They inhibit real-time relationships between child and teacher, child and peer, etc. And because it's been 10 years since its development, there is research to prove this. In fact, on more than one account, research shows that it actually changes outcomes on test scores. So I'm going to introduce Jody Ambrosino. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Jody Ambrosino. Our smartphones promote unprecedented connection with information, entertainment, and one another. And while these devices have immense potential to improve communication, engagement, and connection, their persistent presence in the classroom may come at a cognitive cost. I will highlight just some of the research that we will actually be handing out. We just compiled a packet for you. In terms of general trends in media, screen time use, and media multitasking, based on a national survey in the United States, youth consume greater than 7.5 hours of media per day, 29% of which is spent juggling multiple media streams at the same time, which I'll refer to as media multitasking. Unlike computers, humans don't really multitask. They task switch, which forces the brain to rely on habitual and procedural learning that happens shallowly and with little conscious awareness. Even so, media multitasking and background media are ubiquitous. And a 2010 Pew report on teens and technology found that 64% of surveyed students who were permitted to have their cell phones in school sent or received text messages in class at least once. Now, regarding direct effects of media multitasking, a number of earlier articles that relied on self-report demonstrated an association between multitasking and lower GPA. These studies are correlational and do not point to the direction of this relationship. So those who are struggling in school may certainly be engaging in more media multitasking. In contrast, though, multiple randomized studies now conducted with older adolescents and young adults indicate that multitasking during a lecture impairs test performance for those directly engaged in the task, as well as for those who are seated nearby, just watching. One study even found that undergraduate students spent 40 out of 100 minutes of class time on non-academic internet sites, just web surfing. An additional 27 minutes was spent using smartphones during the same time. The final research that I would like to highlight relates to how the mere presence of one's cell phone influences cognitive performance. Several well-designed experimental studies with undergraduate students found that even when people seem to be maintaining sustained attention, the mere presence of a cell phone in class, even if not in direct use or turned off, is sufficiently distracting to produce deficits in performance, especially on more complex tasks that demand greater attentional and cognitive resources. And in Adrian Ward's words, the attention and energy it takes to not check a cell phone seems to cause what he refers to as brain drain, because cognitive resources recruited to inhibit automatic attention to one's phone are made unavailable for other tasks, and performance on that task at hand suffers. Lastly, research is mounting, as we all know, to indicate that mental health issues are associated with media use. A national survey data of the United States adolescents gathered from 1991 to 2016 demonstrate that mental health issues were inversely associated with time spent on digital media, especially for girls. In contrast, adolescents who spent more time on non-screen activities were less likely to have mental health problems. So in summary, taken together, creating more opportunity for our kids to disconnect from their devices and interface face-to-face could help improve their mental health and also enable them to more fully engage as learners in the rigorous academic environment offered here to them within the Guilford school system.
Currently, there are different rules regarding device usage across the schools. We would like to optimize learning in social environments and ensure no usage during the school day, including classroom, lunch, hallway, even bathroom time, from the start of the day to the end of the day. And one policy to consider is that all devices be turned off and put away in lockers before the first bell rings and not turned on until the closing bell. Consequences might include a warning for first offense, taken away and held at main office with a parent call second offense, and a no longer allowed to have it on school property as the third offense. Now, there's an organization that's come about that's compiled schools that have successfully implemented this, and it's called, if you want to check it out, it's called awayfortheday.org. We have compiled some of their data on selected policies, consequences for you, so we'll be happy to leave that with you. Just want to introduce Sarah Kellogg. Thanks.
Good evening. I'll be really quick. I'm just here to talk numbers. We know that you like proposals and advice from us parents being backed by other parents. So we put our feelers out in the community with a written petition as well as an online petition. I'm happy to report as of 7:30 tonight, we had 242 signatures. Basically, when we put out our group's mission and spoke about how we'd like to see some sort of uniform district policy about cell phone usage and handheld devices, 242 parents agreed with that. Actually, several students were ready to sign as well. And we found that after presenting screenagers at Baldwin Middle School, there were some really great comments and questions by students, which indicated not only do they see it as a distraction both with academics and with their social interactions, but they also really seem to be seeking guidance too. There were questions about what is a healthy amount of time to spend on a screen at our age. Will taking away electronics make kids want them even more? Does the age of the person using the technology matter? Our kids are asking great questions. Our group's hope is to provide some of those answers and to work with the schools in creating an environment where they feel that they can learn everything they need to move forward. As you know, we'd like to see that done without the devices present. And I just wanted to offer a couple of quotes from kids and administrators who have already participated in a program called Away for the Day. The first is from Cassie Sinichko, the Director of Operations at GW Community School in Springfield, Virginia. She said, students honestly said that they were surprised at how much less stress they felt knowing they couldn't check their phone during class. They hadn't realized how distracting their phone was until they didn't have it. Even if it was in their backpack, it was always calling them to sneak a peek, which I think we as adults are guilty of too and have felt that. Another quote was initial resistance, but parents love it and kids are doing great with it now. That was Leah Niehaus, school counselor in Manhattan Bewatch Middle School in Manhattan Beach, California. In Oxford, Michigan, Deb Beard, a teacher from Upland Hills School, said the change has been positive. Having clear and firm boundaries has been a relief to all of us. And back to one of our students from Baldwin Middle School, the comment was, I think kids are more likely to listen if they know about the consequences related to too much screen time. So again, in closure, we have over 200 parents and counting, we think, with the online petition who would support this policy, and we think a lot of kids would too. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Could I ask a clarification question? Just, are you requesting a policy change on personal handheld devices, or are you concerned with the use of iPads and whatnot by teachers? Or are you referring to just cell phones?
Cell phones, iWatches, Apple Watches,
Okay.
Handheld devices, gaming devices.
So the non-curricular related instructional
Right. And so my
technology.
understanding, and while this isn't a policy, is that it is a school rule that they not have, and I have a student at Adams, my understanding is that they are to leave their cell phones in their lockers. Is your understanding that the students have their cell phones in the classroom?
Yes.
Okay.
So it is a rule, yes.
Okay.
But it's not uniformly enforced, and there are many students that will, also have it in the bathroom, or certainly at, even lunchrooms.
Okay. And coincidentally,
Holding them even behind the Chromebooks.
okay. My other question is why are you not concerned with the high school also? Because coincidentally, I have just recently asked the board to, put this on an agenda item for discussion at the high school level, middle school and high school level.
Thank you. We'd be happy to add the high
No, I'm not saying we're adding the high school, but I do want to discuss it, and it's something that concerns me as well. I obviously can't speak for the rest of the board. We've not had that discussion at this point, but I just wondered why you chose K through 8.
Because for K through 8, there was a lot.
Yeah, I was going to go to the mic. Hi, I'm Mags DePetris. We're happy to support and put research behind anything you guys are interested in. We just didn't want to bite off more than anyone could chew. So if you guys are interested in anything, this is what we're here for, is to work together. So if you're interested, obviously we all have kids that are about to show up in the high school. So we're completely supportive of making it a school-wide, K through 12.
The process is through the
Right,
policy committee.
committee.
It's not going to be a board. The
Right.
board is not going to order.
If it were a policy.
If it were a policy, correct.
Right.
Well,
Go ahead.
Sorry. So first of all, let me apologize for stepping away just as you started to speak. I wanted to catch my kid there. So certainly we, as you well know, because you clearly have done a lot of research, we have kind of on the books a policy that refers to cell phones. I believe we reviewed it, I'm looking at Dr. Freeman, 4 or 5 years ago.
We took out the word beeper.
Right. It required some updating. But the policy committee meets 4 or 5 times a year and would certainly be the place to start. We could put the group on the agenda to hear at that level kind of.
And get a report from the administration about what
That's
are
right.
some of the. I'll tell you, we looked at this 10 years ago. Now, obviously, the world is very different today. But we actually got, 10 years ago, we got a fair amount of pushback from parents that we proposed a much stricter enforcement regime. The board, I think the majority of the board was interested, and I'm looking around, and there's nobody here from that time. I can't, Dr. Myers isn't here anymore. And so I think there is going to be, it's great that there's 250 parents that have signed it. There are a lot, this is going to, I think you're going to find it's one of these issues that's a bit more complex. But I think one thing that I'd be interested in personally, and I'm not suggesting you do this, but what is the experience with other districts in Connecticut with similar policies? Are there enforcement issues? Are there perceived benefit issues? Are there tangible benefit
Old
issues?
Saybrook High School just went cell phone free, so they would have some great research for us at this
So,
demographic.
I'm not suggesting you do that, but I mean, we can certainly.
Seymour High School as well.
Seymour?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're
So, but that is, I think we all, maybe the best advice that I received from an administrator in my time in Guilford was when my girls were going into Adams. Mrs. Walker said, the one thing you can do to help them more than anything else is don't get them a smartphone until they're in the high school. And we didn't, and I'm real happy about it. I think it worked out great for them. But we all know, look, it is a different world today.
Just to answer that, why K through 8, fortunately, if you go to awayfortheday.org, every obstacle to implementing has been answered on awayfortheday.org, what the pushback is and what the results were by implementing this across the board, what policies were implemented, and it's more than one, what consequences were implemented, and there's more than one. So please, it's made it it's made it turnkey. awayfortheday.org. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you very
so I'll ask Dr. Balistraci to put that on the agenda for the whenever the next
We'll
policy
coordinate
committee
with
is.
you and get
Yeah,
invitations out. Yep.
we definitely will.
Sure.
And feel free to.
8 copies of packets that we put
Terrific.
together, including Away for the Day and
Okay.
some of the research that
And
we
I think
started.
I have a couple of emails at least, so we can reach out. I can reach out as we look at schedules.
Great. One of the concerns we certainly can appreciate is what about an emergency, especially in today's climate? And I guess our thought as Shoreline Tech is that while certainly, we want to be prepared for what if, the reality is we have to live, for what not what could happen, but what is happening right now. And we see this with our kids, and this is happening right now. So we just like to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
And it affects more than just the kids who are holding the phones. It affects everybody in the classroom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I did see Ms. Saka come in, so I'd ask Ms. Dorcas Saka to come up. We understand that you are busy, obviously, as a senior, and we understand you're going to Claremont McKenna.
I am.
A fabulous choice.
Congratulations.
So, on behalf of the Board of Education and representing the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, I'd like to present you with the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education Student Leadership Award. You've been a very valuable member, representative to our local Board of Education. We appreciate your insight. We appreciate the work you've done on some of these committees, like the Dress Code Committee, I believe, and the Start Time Committee. So you've tackled two of the more nettlesome issues that we've been facing here in Guilford, but you have done it with cheer and with wisdom and foresight and preparation, and I want to congratulate you and wish you all the best at Claremont McKenna. Fabulous school. You're going to forget about what winter is like. It's outside of Los Angeles, in case you didn't know, and it's a great place. But we appreciate that your work, and congratulations. And I'd like to ask Mr. Messeni to say a couple of words.
This young lady is one of our ABC students, and last week I had the opportunity to attend their end of the year celebration, and all the house parents were there, the mentors were there. It was a great evening, and they invited back a graduate of our high school, the early 2000, I think, and she's in her I think she's in her 30s or something like that. But she graduated from the ABC House from our high school, and I sat there as she told her story, and I thought of this young lady because they'll be inviting her back. I tried to talk her not into going that far away from home. I said, "You got to stay close to home and be close to us still." But she is going out to California. You will hear about this young lady in years to come. She's a good one and a great young lady. We're glad she walked the halls of this high school. And like Brendan, they both served on these committees. I asked both of them to do that as student representatives, and they hardly missed a meeting. They were wonderful, and both of them have great success ahead of them. Congratulations. Real proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, are there any other, the agenda is a complete mess, honestly.
You only have one thing left?
Well, any other public questions? You didn't know, anybody? All right. Come on up here, please, if that's okay. See, I'll tell you why I do that, because
Watch the chorus.
Watch the wire. Mr. Well, it's really that our cameraman says that it makes him crazy when people are talking out in the audience, and we don't want to make him crazy. He's a
I have a student at Guilford Lakes. Are your minds made up about school times? Is it worth coming on Wednesday? Have you set in stone, or are you placating us by letting us vent to you, and then you're going to make your decision anyway? Or is it worth our while to say this is what we think should happen, and you're going to weigh the evidence, or is a decision made?
The decision categorically is not made. Categorically
so
not made.
It's worth our time to come and try to convince you of
Absolutely.
how right
So.
we are and how wrong you are.
Have to. Here's the prediction I'm going to make.
Yes.
Whatever we do, there are going to be a large number of people who are disappointed. Because there are a lot of people, and we've been working on this for 4 years. There is a very large group of people in town who believe that our schools start too early. There is a very large group of people in town who believe that they don't start too early. There is a large group of people in town who hope for some kind of interim solution, like something to do with transportation. So the reason that we've been working on this for 4 years is because our minds aren't made up. And we've tried to do this very, very carefully. And I think there are voices who think that we should be much more aggressive. We should. I think the original proposal was to start the high school at 8:30. Correct. And we just didn't, putting aside whether that would be.
Well, that's what the research says is 8:30.
I understand.
Almost.
No.
Yes. And the research is clear. I understand you're going to move the high. It's the minutia of the rest of it that I think concerns.
We are quite aware of the minutia of the rest of it, and that has been the problem.
Stop my feet in one Wednesday.
That's fine.
Thank you very much.
We know we are way past the point on this issue where there is something that is going to make everybody happy. It's just not possible.
I really think you should be concerned making me happy.
Yes. Okay, see.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Somebody's honest.
No, he's a friend.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Please, come on up.
Hi, Sarah Salato. Unfortunately, I can't come on Wednesday, May 23rd, which is just crazy for me because that was the one day that I can't come, and of course the one thing that I really want to be there for. So I just wanted to make sure I understand the numbers. I've attended a lot of meetings, as you all know, you've seen my face a lot, and I just want to make sure I understand that we're really talking about 35% of students in our town.
For what?
Because
We're
65%.
not understanding you.
What 35%?
65% of high schoolers get driven or drive themselves. I heard that at one of our meetings before, which leaves 35% that take the bus. Is that correct?
All of them would be impacted by a change in the start of the high school.
Right.
So I'm not understanding what you mean by only 35% would be impacted.
Well, because, with that 10 and 15 minutes, 10 minutes would be 65%. I'm sorry, 35%. 35% of them will be impacted for 10 minutes.
So you're referring.
To the shortening
can
of
I?
the school day.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I think what you're referring to is that the interim report from the start time
yep.
committee, which we have not yet discussed as a board, is recommending a 10-minute change in start times for elementary, middle, and a 15-minute change in the high school, 10 of which would be gained by pushing all schools ahead by 10 minutes, and 5 minutes which would be gained by taking a minute out of each passing time at the high school.
Right.
So that's not what I understood at the last meeting that we had. It was that the extra 5 minutes would be gained by those that drive themselves?
No.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's.
I think.
Okay.
Right. No,
Thank
no.
you for.
So I think there's a concern.
Sarah, I understand the confusion.
Yeah. It is.
Of the 15 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes would not benefit the students who continue to ride the
take
bus.
The bus.
Right, that's what I just said.
Right. If it was achieved by shortening the school day.
Right.
If it could be achieved or if it could be paired with some small 5-minute efficiencies in busing, then that benefit could extend to all. And I do think that I think the numbers are closer to 50-50. But your point is accurate. Everybody would benefit by 10 minutes. Students who drive themselves would benefit by the full 15 minutes. And if we could work with the buses, we might be able to push the benefit to all high school students.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't
that's
trying
exactly
to
what I
be
meant.
based on
It is
prejudice.
difficult to articulate.
Right.
Yes.
But I just want to make sure that I would hope that's really, truly made clear, because they are, as you know, trying to save a minute here or there makes a huge difference.
I mentioned earlier the interim report. I think that Dr. Moore did a really good job putting that in writing in that interim report.
Yeah, no,
so I
he
think
made
people who
that
read the
distinction
report,
clear.
it's easier to write than to say out loud. It's difficult to articulate.
Right. So that goes to my other question about this whole thing that we're doing, which the talk of moving the start time a little bit now with the hope of moving it more so in 2019. I just want to understand, is for the benefit of those that ride the bus to the high school, which is...
No.
It is for the benefit.
Just hang on one at a time.
Okay. But so again, we haven't discussed it as a board, and I was not on the Start Force committee. My understanding from their presentation at our workshop meeting last month and from reading the interim report, the intent is to benefit high school students across the board, because the concern is that we start at an early time and that doesn't give students enough sleep.
Right.
And that it would then, obviously, if a change were to be made, benefit all students because they will all eventually get to high school. The intermediate proposal coming from the Start Force committee for consideration for next year might have a differential impact on kids who drive to the high school versus kids who take the bus, or may not, if busing can address it. But the driving force behind this is to benefit all high school students and then eventually all students in Guilford who eventually attend high school.
And to be really painfully clear, that's only one of two suggestions, even from
That's
the
right.
task force, because at this time, even the task force itself has
Is
not
not.
come to a consensus recommendation. So it is a suggestion, but it's one of two suggestions that has come from the start time task force.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to say is those that do drive themselves do not have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning necessarily. So their time is a little different. They are sleeping a little bit more than those that have to take the bus. As we know, those that have to go on the bus do have to get up super early, as I have a son who has to get up at 6 to catch the bus, and he's on a later bus. But his friends who are driving are rolling out of bed at 6:45, 7 in the morning.
Which will always be true, no matter what time we set.
Right.
That will always be true.
Right.
Not those times necessarily.
Right,
but,
exactly. But so that's just what I'm.
Yeah, it's always quicker to get in a vehicle with one child and driving straight to school than a bus with 30 kids on it. That's naturally going to happen.
Right.
Well, I think one of the things we're hoping happens with the new transportation company, one of the real problems is that when pickups are at 20 of 7 and 7:15 and the kids are being dropped off at 7 or 6:50 and the school doesn't start until 7:25, I mean, that's a real problem.
Yeah.
And it's a problem that's magnified by the size of our town, by the rural nature of much of our town, or a substantial part of our town, the fact that the two middle school campuses are not in the same place.
Right.
That if they were both at Adams, or both, well, it wouldn't be at Adams, but if they were both at Baldwin, this would be a much different discussion because that middle run would be much shorter. But we have a lot of we actually have 6 more buses on the middle school on the
elementary runs than we do on the high school run.
On the middle school run than the high school run. But it's tough. It's not a great situation. I don't know how else to put it. It's expensive. If we wanted to spend another $500,000, that would be one way to try to deal with it. But we've been under some significant budget pressure, obviously, the last few budgets. We all trust me. We all know what the issues are, and right now it is trying as best we can to balance in a way that gets maximum benefits to somebody with a minimum costs to somebody. And I don't know where that's going to come out.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it that you guys are actually doing a public forum just on that alone. I think it's great that you're going to open up and really get a lot of different opinions from all different people. But I appreciate that. I really do that you're going to be doing that.
And to your point, again, my apologies for not catching on right away. It will be one of the things among the many from the report that the Board of Ed will have to consider is the distinction if it turns out to be real, if busing conversations or busing movement can change it, are we in support of a change that might differentially affect?
Well, because we even spoke
kids.
about last time somebody who has a car versus somebody who doesn't have a car. Is it more of an economics thing? Do you remember you spoke about that at the last meeting?
Again, all I'm saying is that that'll be one of many things we may find ourselves having to consider.
Yeah.
And again, because we haven't discussed it, we may fall down in very different places around that.
Yeah.
When will we start to get an idea from the transportation coordinator and the new bus company what, if any, changes we can make to squeeze some time?
They're coming to the Start Time Task Force tomorrow night to discuss early projections. We have access to the new scheduling software as of last week, so we expect to have some early ideas as early as tomorrow night. We won't have detailed runs until close of school and beginning of the summer.
But I just want to remind everybody, we paid for a study 3 years ago to see whether this could be done in a significantly more efficient way with different busing. And the answer was you can do one of two things. You can either spend a lot of money and get a bunch more buses that will run less full, but will shorter runs, and so we can pick kids up later and drop them off later. That's one way to do it. The second way to do it would be to implement real cluster stops so that there's not a stop, assuming it's safe, but so that the stop might be a quarter mile or a half a mile away from somebody's house. Well, that sort of creates the problem that if you're dropping kids off 10 minutes later, which that's good, but they have to walk 10 minutes to get to their bus stop, what did you accomplish?
Right.
And so and plus there are places anywhere north of here it's just not going to be very safe to walk a half a mile on a road. So it is it is an extraordinarily complicated issue. We know about athletics, we know about work, we know about daycare, we know about work, parents' work issues, we know.
Yeah.
We know all of it, and
Yeah.
the question is just where do you do it? It is the function now of the board is going to be line drawing or weighing different concerns. There is no way out of this. There is no solution where everybody is going to be happy. There is to any benefit there is going to be a cost,
Right.
and of some sort, either inconvenience or expense or athletics or something else. Some towns have shortened the instructional day to get there. Well, Dr. Freeman has made it quite clear that he would not be in favor of that.
Yeah.
And I don't think the board would be either. We get it. We understand how complicated this is.
Yeah.
And we're just going to have to do the best we can do.
Yeah. I just wanted to also just say, again, because I can't be here be at your meeting next Wednesday, is just to be careful on the other side of things. As you know, if we're doing this for the students of the high school, we want to make sure that it's not at the detriment for the students in elementary and middle school. So as you would know that, but so it's kind of, as you say, how do we balance that out?
If there is an easy solution with no costs to anybody, I'd be really happy if someone would let me know before next Wednesday.
Yeah.
But
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Okay, so why don't we go to the science curriculum? Are we up to you now? This is item.
We're starting to get a complex.
9.4 on your agenda.
So this, I promise, will be fairly quick. Tonight is just a receive only of the revisions to the science curriculum. This is a draft, and a lot of this information has been already shared with the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee. We've had a couple meetings, but I just wanted to present it to the entire board so that you will have a sense. We started our work about a year ago in earnest with the committee, but even prior to that, information has been given to the principals, and we've worked around with all administrators. We have been sending teachers and representatives from the middle school and the high school particularly because they have more, they do have certification, science certifications. And we've been sending them to professional learning opportunities for a couple of years to learn more about the new standards. But this is our schedule, where we have been, and you can see tonight we are presenting revisions to you in draft form. They're not in final form, but certainly the student expectations and the essence is in final form. There are some typos and some formatting issues. The committee will be meeting again at the end of the month to look at the entire document for alignment purposes, and then we will ask the board to approve the document on June the 11th. You have a hard copy. I will also send it to you in electronic form so that you can see there are a lot of links within this document, and you can look at the links as well. This is the members of the committee, and I want to recognize two that are here tonight. Jennifer Duvalis is our math specialist and our 5th grade mathematics coach. And Scott McDowell is the high school chairperson of the science department.
And Mr. Sands.
And Mr. Sands, of course, is sitting here, and he's a member of the committee as well. So, but just looking down at the committee, you can see this group has had, with a couple of minor exceptions, 100% attendance at all of their meetings. They are the ones really responsible for this document, not me. I just tried to pull some of it together and teach them about developing curriculum. So we have representatives from every building. These representatives will also be the ambassadors who will be leading the rollout and the professional learning, and they've also been collecting information from their teachers at their schools during the development process. So the next generation science standards are really built in what we call 3 dimensions. In the past, science was like a static set of science disciplines or topics. And so, you would learn about weather in one grade, and then in another grade you would learn about conservation, and in another grade you might learn about something else, landforms. And really without any natural building, but we know that scientists don't work in vacuums, even scientists they work across disciplines. Even, the physics, the biologists, the chemists, have to communicate together to solve problems and who contribute to the understanding. So these 3 dimensions are really, really important and will be a big part because these are the science and engineering practices. They look a lot like our math practices from the Connecticut core standards. These are the cross-cutting concepts that go across every single grade. And these are the disciplinary core ideas around, major areas of science, whether it's the physical science, the life science, the earth and space science, and engineering design. A lot of engineering is in this. So the curriculum put together these principles, and it took us several meetings. We kept adding to these that we said, whatever we put in here, we need to make a commitment to these principles, especially the whole idea of making mistakes as an opportunity to learn and to refine our thinking, where we learn and go back to the drawing board and reconstruct and retest, as well as knowing that we have to be able to apply this thinking to new context. Science is constantly changing every single day. We can't keep up with, all the facts and all the details, but we can understand certain principles and certain core ideas, and as new things happen, that helps us to understand, whether it is the lava flow on the Big Island or it's something else going on. So these are those big cross-cutting concepts around energy and matter, structure and function, stability and change, patterns, cause and effect, scale and proportion and quantity, and systems and system models. So those go across all the grades. One of the findings that we did really have to dig deep about and think hard about was that what do scientists really do? And we found out that about 55% of their time is spent reading, interpreting, and producing text. So a lot of people think that science is just lab or research and it should all be hands-on, but there's a lot more to it than that. And so we are working really hard to find those important text and written products that we expect students to do in science. Another thing that we plan to communicate with our parents next school year as we begin to implement are some parent guides that'll say you're going to see this in K2 and this in 3-5 to help parents understand, but we've got to roll out with our teachers first, of course. So what have we been doing in Guilford Public Schools? Like I said, the state adopted these standards in 2014. We've been exploring them. And we've been waiting for further information from the state. We've also been conducting research about what other states and other schools have been doing. We piloted language arts and engineering units in summer programming, and if I can remind you, for the last 2 years we've shown you videos of some of those summer programs where we've used science topics. We've been field testing math and language arts integration units. If you remember, they talked about the solar cooker that's going on in one grade level and the bridge building that's going on in another grade level as part of our mathematics program. Also, we just integrated a conservation unit in language arts. We also have been working on a redesign of Guilford High School course offerings. to more closely match the new standards. We've implemented Baldwin enrichment units. I think at your last meeting, the students talked to you about the big STEM event that parents attended at Baldwin Middle School as part of their enrichment program. And most recently, we've participated in grades 5, 8, and 11 in the Next Generation Science Standards field test. And we really think, and this is the state-required test, it does not count this year, but it counts for participation, that every student in Connecticut in grades 5, 8, and 11 will participate. And so what have we learned from that test? A lot. Students have to focus on modeling and using evidence and providing scientific explanations of real-world phenomena. There might be a photo, there might be a simulation that occurs, and students have to gather information from that. They will be conducting investigation and trials through computer simulations. They will be expected to construct, read, and understand data from charts, graphs, tables, and maps. And so we see a lot of connections with our social studies curriculum, with our mathematics curriculum, and with our language arts curriculum. So it's an ongoing process. The professional learning, of course, and information is at the bottom. Right now we're here making curriculum adaptations so that we can assess learning or access learning in all grade levels. Then we have to make instructional adaptations, three-dimensional teaching and learning next school year. And then we really have to think about adapting our assessments to help support our students. So I'm going to give you the document tonight and just quickly just how to read it. This is a cover page for grade 3. And you can see there are 3 primary disciplines that come across here. And these are the topics in grade 3 that students are going to be focusing on. And this is just happens to be a page from one. This is the life science in grade 3, and you can see the topic that was here is repeated on the top line. Then this kind of gives you an overview of what the topic means and some guiding questions. What do we expect kids to come, what kind of understanding? Then you're going to see the performance expectation. That's what the standards expect us. This is what the state expects for this topic. This is kind of unique in Guilford. We made a real strong commitment to identify some phenomena. And when we say phenomena, we're talking about natural, real world, things that might surprise us. And, you know, a common thing might be mixing vinegar and baking soda and watching it bubble. Why is it doing that? And that might be something that a kindergartner would be thinking about. But in 3rd grade, and in fact in this one, there is a video of a monarch butterfly emerging from a cocoon using time-lapse photography. And it's like, how did that happen? What is happening? And so using that to engage students, to make them show this is meaningful and it's real, and really thinking about science and building off that phenomena. This is just a little infographic that we use with teachers, and it's also in the book behind the overview that kind of talks about how today's students learn science, you know, trial and error. You see the over here the bridge crashing, and after more trials and tests, the bridge actually holding weight, as well as here's a phenomena. Why is my hair standing on end when I touch this? So these are just some things to help us understand next generation science standards. I have several links here to give you more information about the next generation science standards. Certainly it is more real to us today than it was a month ago, based on the Next Generation Science Assessment, and we have a new emphasis and a new sense of urgency to get this curriculum in place. So I will send you the electronic copy and any updates that we make between now and June, when this will be presented again. I do have, if you have any questions for Scott or for Jennifer, they're here.
If you could maybe just come up or come over to this table over here and just have a couple of questions. And first of all, thank you for your work.
For all the work.
This is not. I think we, having been through curriculum development a couple of times, we know it's not an easy thing, and these are probably a little more complicated than most curriculum revisions, because these are truly different, are they not?
The next generation science change is a different way of thinking things. Yeah, you don't look at it the same way. We were very answer-driven at the beginning. When you talk about science, it's no longer like that. We want them to understand how to get to the answer. The saying I give my kids, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And I get the eye rolls all the time. But they do it, and they're doing really well with it. And they actually start to find, it makes sense to understand how to do something. And then later on, oh, wait a minute, we did this before. And the next generation science standards, what they're going to do for us is we're going to create this cyclic pattern from kindergarten where they're going to start things. And they're going to see something on a very basic method. And maybe in third grade, they're going to hit it again. And then maybe fifth grade, they'll do a little bit more. But by the time they get to the high school, they've already done this stuff. They're going to be able to go back to the knowledge they have and just expand on it. And this is where the next generation science standards really change things. It puts a lot more kind of responsibility on the student, and it makes it really hard on a teacher because you have to step back. And that becomes where you don't want to run, no, we have to do it this way. The procedure has to be A, B, C. But you can't do that. You got to go and give them the paper or give them something and say, well, what happened? You don't explain what lightning is. You say there's lightning. What is it? And you have to find a way not to give the kids the answer. And that's what makes it so great. And once the kids get into it and they start understanding it, they really do buy into it. I'm doing a level 2 chemistry this year. I took the lower kids, and it was a real hard push at the beginning, but I've had some exceptional results. And the kids really do like it, and they understand it, and their achievement is incredible.
Great. You have some thoughts about this?
I think the part that's great is the practices, right? So those science and engineering practices that thread K through 12, like the mathematical practices. So we're instilling these habits in students. So they're learning that content along the way, but more importantly, those habits are being formed that they're going to apply beyond us.
In the high school, we've always counted on elementary school and to middle schools to help us. Now we're dependent on it. Everything is linked. And the great process with this is, for me, coming from 2 curriculums to 2 different districts, it's never been the kindergarten, the 5th grade, the 4th grade are all together writing something. So we actually saw where it was going to start all the way to where we're going to see it in high school, and everything is cyclic. So I remember we were talking about the format of the document, and we went back and forth on this, but we had to look at, what a 5th grade teacher was going to use compared to a high school teacher, and we had to come up with something. We did. So as a high school teacher, I could look at the 5th grade, and it's similar to what I'm looking at. I say, oh, they did this in 5th grade, they did this 7th grade. So when I'm in high school, we never saw this before. Well, no, you did. You saw it in 3rd grade, you saw it in the 5th grade. And we have it. And it was great to see not only the collaboration, but the buy-in, where people really see it and really work at it.
Terrific. Well, questions? Anybody questions or comments?
My, if I may, it's kind of a comment / question, I guess. My hope, from what I've learned so far, and just listening to what you're saying, is that it not only helps students learn science, but also help them be better at reading about scientific things, events, happenings, experiments in the real world, so that even if they don't become a physicist or a chemist, they can pick up a newspaper or pick up a journal article and understand what and make their own determination of the argument that's being made. Can you confirm that that I'm going in the right direction with my
Yes.
thought on this? Okay.
I mean, in the high school, what we're doing is we're piloting a couple of classes. So I took the chemistry too, and over 50% of the material the kids are reading are from articles. They're assessed on articles all the time. So chemical, physical, changes in chemical properties or physical properties, they did that through a reading and through experimentation. We didn't even look at the textbook. And we saw that, and we gave them examples where they worked off of it. And this is where they're seeing it. And one of the hardest things to get kids to understand is they see their neighbor get an answer, and they think that has to be the answer, and it's not true. There could be multiple right answers. Just a fraction of a deviation on some data, and your graph may go from looking, perfectly, 90 degrees to all of a sudden 45 degrees. But you're still right. And when the kids start to understand that they don't have to have the same answer, and they could look at the article and make a mistake, but they can still get something from it, they start to challenge a little bit more. And they're not afraid to make those mistakes. You have to give them credit for the work. So if they do this long problem, think of a calculus problem, and all of a sudden that last part, the answer is wrong, well, it's wrong. No. Well, in chemistry, where you see these long problems, they can get the answer completely wrong, but they can still get an A on it because their procedure, their understanding of how to get to where they were was right. They may have made some technical errors, but that's what you build on. As you get through the year, they get more and more, and then the answers start falling into place, where they start getting them because they have the confidence to do it. It's no longer like, here it is, the vocabulary. The first thing I did this year in my classes was I asked them, what have you had problems in science? What didn't you like about science? And we create this huge list, and we narrowed it down to 5 objectives about, vocabulary. They just long vocabulary, long multiple choice exams. And we went through and we came up with 5 guidelines for my classes. And we followed that, and we've done it throughout the year. And the kids really like the fact that we're following through with how they helped to design the class. And that's what NGSS is about, where you find what you need to do, you give them a problem, you say, look, you guys have to do it. You have input. You can make a difference. And when they see this and they go through it over and over again, starts with the kindergarten. By the time they get to high school, we're going to be doing so much better from those kids understanding those routines that when we say, okay, this is something, there's a phenomena, explain it to us. How are you going to do? Oh, we remember when we saw the soda bottle collapse, now we're seeing this, and they're going to draw from it. But they're also going to have the confidence to do something, and if they do make a mistake, fine. But they're going to learn from it, and they're eventually going to get back to the right answer, and that's the importance.
Jen was the director of our engineering, our science and engineering program at Lakes last summer, and she's doing it again this summer. And so you want to say just a little bit about those whole engineering practices?
Sure. So currently, second grade at Jones is piloting one of the units that we did last summer. So kids are learning how to be a scientist and an engineer, and they're learning about, they started with a phenomena, and then they do investigations to kind of prove that phenomena, and they do a lot of notebooking along the way. So they're journaling their ideas, they're drawing simple diagrams and sketches and labeling them, and then they go back and they revise their ideas based on the share out that happens with the group. We're also doing a pilot in grade 1 with sound and light. So it's amazing the journals that are produced from 6-year-olds and the ideas that they come up with after they do these what appear to be dopey investigations, but they're really learning so much about the content of sound and light that it's just the best part of my day every day the past couple of months. So I really truly believe that the habits that are forming are going to support all the way up. It's not just about the content. It's about those habits that we're developing.
It's a very large jump. And you start to do it, and coming from Hamden, where I came from, where we started it early, I really made a conscious effort to make a change. The curriculum committee over the summer really helped me to get an idea where they were going, and I kind of really took on it. And the fact that all of the grades are working together, and we saw the program that was going on in the summer, it really aligns with everything. I mean, my chemistry is what I've taught for the last 18 years. And it is cookbook. You follow the procedure, you do this, and it doesn't have to be, and it hasn't been this year. And it took the commitment, but when you start to see the kids starting to do well, saying they like chemistry, level 2 kids that like chemistry, it's great. The kids come to class, they like it. It's different, and I'm teaching these kids organic chemistry. They don't understand it's organic chemistry because we're not telling them that, but they're creating these structures, they're creating these things, and they're doing it, and then all of a sudden, no, this is what it is. You're right. You put this stuff together, now you know what you're doing. And they kind of learn the vocabulary after they've done something, and they start to recognize things. And when the vocabulary starts to get built in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and they get to the high school, they're just going to know it. We're not going to have to put these long lists of vocabulary on the board because the kids are going to have already had it multiple times, and we're just going to build on it.
And certainly this isn't going to happen overnight. No. It isn't going to be something that we're going to say instantaneously that we're a master of this. It will take a lot of professional learning, a lot more input from teachers. What we have in the sample instructional practices is really to clarify the expectations. Teachers can use some of those. They don't have to use those. They will continue to work in their professional learning communities and to develop units and find other examples as they get deeper and deeper into the document. But what was important about the committee is that there was a K-12 continuum, and that we spent a whole week just learning about three-dimensional science, really, and then over the course of the year pulled together the document that you have in front of you. But like I say, this is just a draft. We will continue to work on it, and if you have any questions, just let us know, and I will send all of this to you electronically.
I appreciated your analogy about the journey, not the destination, because for me it helps to really emphasize the interdisciplinary nature of the learning.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So we did not do 2 agenda items in order as printed tonight. So I think we're on the committee reports.
It's the journey.
Yeah, that's right. Well, this was a haphazard journey, but nonetheless, a lot of stuff to do. Policy committee, anything?
So we, as I noted earlier in the meeting, we met last month, brought forward the graduation policy and regulation. We've noted a couple of times that we have some ongoing looks at attendance and truancy policy, a homeless students policy. So we will continue to work on those other items, and then obviously expect at some point to be creating an agenda item for the Shoreline Tech Committee to join us.
Correct. Okay. Operations Committee?
Yes. Well, we had quite an extensive meeting today, and I'll just highlight 3 subjects that we covered. One, we reviewed the athletic program and budget and the relationship between the district and the various booster clubs. And we did some comparison between that and what some of the other districts in the area do. And I think that there's going to be a letter sent out to the parents in the fall that kind of outlines this and makes it a little easier to understand. But I think it was a very good session. We got an update on the practice field. That's the new turf field we put in, which is currently closed. How this is going to be repaired still has not been determined, and we're keeping a close eye on that. It is our very sincere hope that the field will be back online by the end of August, but it would help if we knew what we were going to do to bring it back online. I would emphasize that at the moment, testing and research is going on the field. The field is closed. This is not to be used while we're trying to figure out how to fix it. And then the last topic was the Calvin Leak septic system. After some extensive testing, the decision has been made that it is not possible to fix the existing system, and we will need to replace it over the summer. I think that's a time frame that we can achieve, these things have a natural life, and this one has just come to the end of its natural life, and so we need to put a new leaching field, et cetera, in. We can get that done before the start of school, so I don't think it'll be disruptive. We do not have an estimate on costs so far, but we'll look at that. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Fine. Thank you. Anything on curriculum committee?
We meet at the end of the month
Okay.
to talk about the Theory of Knowledge course.
Oh, is that right?
That'll be exciting.
That's terrific. And is Mr. Bassani still here? No. Mr. Buno teaches that class here at the high school, and as a consumer of an indirect consumer of that class, that was an inspired choice. He has, I think the kids really think he's doing a fabulous job in that class, and my daughter's asking me questions like just can't you ask me things like 2 + 2 and stuff like that? Whatever happened to those days? She's looking at a topic for that class of should poetry in a library be included in the fiction section or the nonfiction section? So I don't know. How should I know? So anyway, it's great.
Thoroughly enjoying the experience.
It's a fabulous class. Town committees, anything with town committees? Learn Board of Directors, is there any, did we miss the last one, I think, or are we?
I believe we did. I continue to attend the executive committee meetings, and I'll just note that later this month I have been asked to address their leadership team. We'll be talking about systems and continuous improvement and district-wide coherence, and so I'm looking forward to being able to work with them a little bit, and I'll be spending half a day with them.
Terrific. All right, well, I think that's it. Did we cover everything? So is that a motion to adjourn? Yes. All right, second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Sure.